What's up, guys? Dr. Uz here from the Dr. Uz Talks YouTube channel, and I wanted to talk to you today about something that's been in the news there recently. A discovery there from Imperial College, where basically they're making teeth. They're growing teeth in a lab, right? And obviously everybody's getting very excited about this. I thought that maybe you might want the viewpoint there from somebody who is a implant dentist, somebody who basically spends pretty much every single day placing implants, doing bone grafts, etc., and how this is going to affect things. Right now, obviously there's a big caveat in this that it's going to take a long time for this technology to come around. It's going to take maybe 50 years before we're actually at the stage where we can implement this in patients. But one of the big things that there is a problem there with this is what you don't account for the reason why people are losing teeth. Now, in my experience, and this is obviously anecdotal, but I place hundreds of implants per year. The majority of time when I'm seeing patients there with missing teeth, with teeth there that need replacement, most of the time these teeth are being lost there due to gum disease, infection, teeth that have had multiple treatments done there to them, but then the treatment has eventually failed. And obviously those teeth are being removed, and then implants placed there, or people who can't afford implants having other types of treatment. The issue with that is the majority of those cases that are seen require some degree of bone grafting, right? And the reason for that is because most of the time there, if somebody has had, say, for example, gum disease, they have lost bone over a long period of time. And you're getting to the stage there now where the tooth is so mobile that it has to be removed. Once it's being removed, there is so little bone there that is holding the tooth in. If you want to put in an implant, you've now got to regenerate bone in that site so that you can actually get an implant in the site there. So you're having to graft it, right? Quite often there, when you have cases there with infections, you've got a tooth there where pretty much all the bone around it has been decimated. You may get fenestrations, which are kind of like small windows of infection around there, or a dehiscence, where there's literally just no bone around the tooth. And you take the tooth out and you end up cleaning it and you graft it, and you either put an implant in straight away, or later on you go and place an implant once your graft is kind of taken. Now, the issue with growing a tooth is that it doesn't account for any of this stuff, right? So the way that I can liken it is basically, imagine if you're trying to build a house, right? So the tooth is like a house basically, right? But the area that you're building it on is basically like a swamp, like a marshland, right? It's not really very stable. Or you're building it on sand in the desert, for example, right? And you put this house on there, very, very quickly, that house is either not going to be stable, it's going to collapse, or you're going to end up with subsidence underneath it, right? So what do engineers do? Well, engineers will basically reconstruct a foundation for that house or that structure to kind of sit on. And this is in essence what oral surgeons, implant surgeons, general dentists who place implants there, who do surgery, this is the kind of things that we do. We create bone so that we can basically get a foundation for the implant to kind of sit in. Now, if you imagine, if you have a patient there, and very often I see these patients who have lost 60-70% of the bone that is holding the tooth in, that's why the tooth has become mobile, that's why the tooth has fallen out. In that situation, where are you going to put your tooth, right? So you might be able to grow a new tooth. Okay, that's great, you grow a new tooth. You put the tooth follicle within the bone, but there's no bone there, right? Now, really, the next breakthrough, if they're able to do this, and if they do, this is really going to accelerate things there in life. The next breakthrough is going to be to try and regrow bone. If we can regrow bone, if we can regrow gum tissue, then we can get to a stage there where it's like, okay, we can regrow teeth. Regrowing teeth is the icing on the cake. Of course, it's the bit that everybody sees, right? The teeth are the bits that everybody sees. The teeth are the bits that everybody wants. But the foundation, the bit underneath, the gums, the periodontium, the bone, etc., those are the things there that are super important. If you don't have that, you're in trouble. So then the question is, at that point, is it possible for these tooth germs to regenerate, to grow in grafted tissue, right? Because there are loads of different types of bone grafts that are available. There's, you got synthetics, you've got animal bone, you've got human autogenous bone there. And if you're putting in one of these regrown teeth, will it be able to grow? If we can regrow these teeth, will it be able to regrow in grafted material? Because if you're basically going and regenerating a bone site, that unless you're using 100% autogenous bone, which is bone from the patient itself, that actually some of this bone is going to be residual bone grafting material, right? And implants are designed specifically to allow bone cells to kind of grow into them, but also at the same time, they're stable within sites there that have grafted material in them. Is a tooth germ going to be stable in bone grafted material? We don't know. We have no idea. So then at that point, it's not just like you lose a tooth, you can pop another one in. You lose a tooth, you got to regenerate the site. Now, imagine if you have to regenerate the site there with only autogenous bone. There's not many surgeons who do that. Many surgeons there use biomaterials, etc., to regenerate the sites, where there's synthetic, etc. Basically, somebody's going to have to regenerate the site there first. Once the sites are regenerated, if the tooth germs can only exist in sites there where there's just pure human bone material in it, then once it's regenerated, you can do it, right? So it doesn't mean that you're not going to have any surgery anymore. It doesn't mean that, oh, I've lost a tooth, I can pop another one in. The foundations of the tooth are still going to be gone. If you imagine a site there that has had treatments done there to it, for example, it's had a filling, it's had an infection, it's had a knock to it, it's got resorption around it, all of that is going to lose the supporting tissue that holds the tooth in. So if you imagine for example, you've fallen over, right? Or you had a cricket ball to the face or a hockey stick or something like that, right? And basically you've knocked your tooth out, tooth is replaced. You can get resorption around it. You can get, the tissues resorbing. In those situations, can we just go and take that out and put in another tooth germ? Probably not, because there's no support, right? So at that point, can we then regenerate periodontal tissue? Can we regenerate the attachment of a tooth to the bone? Are we going to create attachments there to gum, like we do there when we're doing certain gum surgeries there, to this new tooth germ? Or is it just going to be like a normal tooth there sitting within bone? Growing a tooth is like the first part of the story, right? And that's the thing that a lot of people won't tell you, because it's fantastic that that scientists can regrow teeth, but the first thing is you need to be able to regrow bone. Because imagine if you could regrow bone, the majority of patients there who have and we have certain materials, bone morphogenic proteins and things like that we can use to do that, which we're not unfortunately allowed to use in the UK. But if you could do that, and you had somebody who's starting to lose their bone due to periodontal disease, or starting to lose bone around infected tooth, etc., and you could just regenerate that to me is a much bigger, much better discovery, and much more usable discovery than regrowing teeth. Because once the person has lost that tooth, that's like a culmination of a loss of tissue over a long period of time. And you need to regenerate that tissue before you can actually put the tooth back in. But if we could just regenerate the tissue without even losing the tooth, imagine how much better that actually is. So, like I said, great discovery, but don't get overly excited about the fact that you can regrow teeth, because regrowing teeth without regrowing periodontal ligament and bone is a waste of time. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think about that in the comments there below, and I'll talk to you again next time.